The movie will begin in 5 moments, the mindless voice announced. All those unseated will await the next show.
L.A. Woman was like coming home, and it was simple and bluesy and just, it was the bare bones, the essence of what we were about. And rock and roll is supposed to be out of a garage.
The record has that kind of a feel to it, you know. It's almost like a jam, you know. That was probably the most fun album to make.
Don't you love her face? Don't you love her as she's walking out the door?
1970. We had one last album to go, and this could be our last album. We're gonna make the album in this Zen moment in time. We didn't discuss the future. The future's uncertain. The end is always near.
Riders on the storm. Riders on the storm.
This was the album that wrapped it all up in a neat bow and presented the Doors' essence to you personally.
They found a unity that was exactly what they needed to show people, to show their audience that they still had what everyone originally loved them for.
Musically, I just think it holds up. It's, 40 years later, and it's still a fantastic record.
I'm telling you that right now there is a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid who is listening to the Doors for the first time as a new band and is getting his or her mind blown.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
We were a 4-man band. I always thought of us as something like the modern jazz quartet of rock and roll.
Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire.
The Doors sunk themselves very deeply into the cultural history of not only rock and roll, but of the United States.
They had established themselves in the American consciousness. They had established themselves as special.
By the time we get to 69, the Doors had achieved probably continental notoriety.
Father, yes, son, I want to kill you.
We were just the filthy, dirty Doors.
I don't think they sought notoriety, but it sure did come to them.
Mother.
After all, where does the name The Doors come from? It comes from Aldous Huxley's book, The Doors of Perception. And that comes from a line by William Blake. If the doors of perception were cleansed, man would see things as they are, ... infinite.
Thank you, Mama! All night long! You and Mama! Gonna love you, baby, all night, yeah!
There was an entire new culture being born. It was called the counterculture, but we always thought it was the new culture to come. It was the culture of the 21st century.
They were working on an intellectual and lyrical level that was higher than most other people. And I mean, they were, to me, right up there with the Beatles and Dylan.
Jim led with his poetry. You know, he wasn't waving a flag and saying, "Follow me." He reached into your heart and your spine and shook you hard and made you figure out who you were and what mattered to you.
When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game.
We consider ourselves more a mirror of society, you know. We were just commenting on what was going on.
There were more things to explore. It was just beginning. I thought, okay, we've done 3 albums in exactly the same setting, the same configuration. Let's bring in the horn players and the string players.
The idea of strings and horns was something Ray and I talked about before we even made our first album, because we love jazz. And it's something we wanted to experiment with and go through.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, now touch me, baby. Can't you see that I am not afraid? What was that promise that you made? Why won't you tell me what she said? What was that promise that you made?
They have success, they have hit records, they have records that people think are crap. You know, they've actually done, you know, the lifetime of experience compressed into less than 4 years. What they did first on Morrison Hotel and then on L.A. Woman was they went back to blues.
I'll keep your eyes on the road, you hand upon the wheel. Keep your eyes on the road, you hand upon the wheel. Yeah, we're going to the roadhouse, gonna have a good time.
They were a band appropriate to their times that were on the edge of whatever was happening. And the edge is the place you always want to be.
This is Changeling. This is the first song we recorded, and it turned out to be the first song on the album.
They come out with this great kick-ass rocker called the Changeling. And the first thing you hear Jim Morrison say is, "Get loose." Okay, I'm ready to get loose. Let's see what you got.
I think in a way it anticipates his leaving. You know, he's been through all this stuff. What else can you do as the singer in a rock band?
I live uptown, I live downtown, I live all around.
He's always talking about himself, that he's a changeling in that song. He's just expressing what was gonna happen. He was telling everybody, this is it. You're gonna see me change.
I had money, I had none, but I never been so broke that I couldn't leave town. I'm a changeling, see me change. I'm a change.
We had been shot down in the streets in Kent State. Bobby Kennedy was dead. Martin Luther King was dead. Our great leaders of peace had been assassinated. It was a terrible time.
The racial problems in the United States were reaching ahead, and in 1970 there was the invasion of Cambodia. That was the same year that L.A. Woman was made.
Vietnam was really heating up. We were trying to get out. There were riots in the streets. A madness had swept across America.
Jim felt that you change inside, and then that'll change the world. He was not too much on overt politics. But we were at the center of the cyclone.
The Changeling, to me, represented and spoke to all these things that we've been going through for the last few years, and the changes in America, and the fact that we were the changeling.
Janis Joplin died later in the year, and Jimi Hendrix died later in the year, both of overdoses. And Jim was overdosing himself on his drug, which was alcohol.
Morrison, he'd been arrested. He had been in court. He'd been crazy drunk. He had all of the women that he probably could want. He had actually been through all of the things that a young man looking to take over the world aspires to.
They were providing a kind of soundtrack for not only the counterculture, but for a liberal consciousness that was in the process of growing and that they were part of.
Leads the album off, and what happens after the album is over with? He leaves town. He wasn't so broke that he had to stick around. He could leave everything behind him and attempt to find a new life in Paris, or perhaps his death.
Well, I've been down so goddamn long that it looks like up to me.
Been down so long, it looks like up to me. And that's what he sings in L.A. Woman on the album. He was feeling the full effect of the American justice system at a time when the American justice system had an axe to grind.
My whole life with the Doors, they were attacked by the establishment. There was a constant campaign to derail us.
Yeah, why don't one you people come on and set me free?
The Doors created terror in the hearts of America, because here was this whole generation of kids that was standing up and saying, no, that's not okay with me. I have a position, I have a life, and there was no precedent for it.
Miami was definitely a turning point in the career of the Doors. What an insane night it was. Hot and sweaty, 14,000 people waiting for the Lizard King to come to Miami. Jim is a Florida boy. He was coming home from California.
You know, I was born here in this state. You know that? Yeah, I was born right here in Melbourne, Florida, 1943. Then I got smart. Went out to a little city named Los Angeles.
And he could see it not as a performer or a fan, but almost as a, almost like a social scientist. The phenomenon of this engagement of a rock band and an audience. And what can I do with that? How can I mess with that?
You're all a bunch of slaves. Let people tell you what you're gonna do. How long are you gonna let them push you around? There are no rules. There are no laws. Do whatever you want to do. Do it.
And Jim finally said to them, he said, what do you want? What do you want from us? We're a rock and roll band. We play some pretty good songs, but you want something more, don't you? Yeah.
And you believe Jim Morrison was going to do whatever he talked about. And that was frightening to people.
Then Jim Morrison goes on to say, how about if I show you my cock? Is that what you want? And I'm going, oh my God, the guy is drunk. He's going to expose himself. We are in some deep shit here. This is going to be disastrous.
It was kind of torturing me because I had found my path in life and I loved music, and our singer had a pact with the devil.
You know, they came looking for a riot, and when they got one, really the biggest impact and the biggest fallout was on him.
He got busted for indecent exposure, public profanity, public drunkenness, and my favorite, simulation of oral copulation.
First the concert, and then the after effect of the concert, and then the trial. weighed heavy on Jim's shoulders. He determined that he would turn it into a test case.
What we're testing down there is the issue of artistic freedom of expression.
So he was found guilty on 2 counts, facing 3 years, perhaps less, a year and a half, in Rayford Penitentiary.
Jim's a free spirit. It was almost an insurmountable assault on his consciousness to threaten him with that.
The tour we had was canceled. We had a tour of 20 cities. Miami was city number 1.
We couldn't play anywhere. The Hall Owners Association had a big meeting and they banned us from most of the major halls in the United States.
It almost killed the band, and it probably killed Jim. It completely destroyed that thing that an artist has when they know they're making a difference and they're doing something, and then all of a sudden he's on the defensive.
Well, okay, we can't play. Let's just record.
I think going back into the studio was a way to get them refocused, because when they're in the studio, the reason why they came together in the first place is clearly obvious to them.
We get together at the Doors workshop on the corner of La Cienega and Santa Monica. The first question is, anybody got any songs? And sure enough, Jim and Robby come through with a whole bunch of songs again, just like they always did.
The Doors had been in rehearsal, trying to get the new album together, what was to become the L.A. Woman album. I went to several rehearsals, and Jim especially was really bored. Couldn't really get himself up for it.
Paul was not happy, and when he left, the band was not happy, because he told them that he was not happy with the music, with what he had heard. And he walked out of that session. I understand later that he convened the band at Sunset Sound and listened again.
We played badly, played extremely badly. Riders on the Storm wasn't good.
Which Paul Rothschild thought sounded like cocktail music.
There was nothing there. You just couldn't get a good take of any kind of feel whatsoever.
I said, this album is going to be a disaster. One moment, I just got up, went into the studio, and said, hey, listen, I'm bored. The first time in my life I've been in the studio and I've had my head down on the console. And I told him, hey, look, I love you guys and I love the music, but it seems to me that you're not turning me on and I'm not turning you on.
Paul went home. We all just stood around kind of in shock.
So we all decided, hey, we'll do it ourselves, you know. We know how to make records by now. We've done 5 of them. We got Bruce Botnick, who's probably the best engineer in town.
Jim then says, man, do we have to record here? I don't want to record here.
When I said, what about your rehearsal studio? Would that work? It's rehearsal studio. I said, are you comfortable there? She said, we love it there.
It was the room we had rehearsed in forever. It had, our music was seeped into the walls, and so it was very comfortable. It was home.
Just seemed that they were cooking, working together. They were in the pocket all the time. They liked each other. They were getting along with each other. They just seemed happy.
And when they were playing downstairs and this stuff was just crackling, it was amazing to me. I was really excited about the new music.
We just did it like a garage band record. Now that was brilliant, and it worked exquisitely.
We always used to love to do Crawling King Snake. It was one of our favorite John Lee Hooker songs. And, you know, I think we'd really meant to do it years before and never got around to it. So, and this being more of a bluesy album, it's the perfect time for it.
That blues element of the Doors kept them somewhat grounded, yet they were able to turn it into an otherworldly event. So Crawling King Snake was kind of a call back to that roots that they loved.
Jim liked to think of himself as an old blues man. He was a big fan of Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and all those old blues guys, and he loved the truth and the songs and the rawness of it, and he related to it. And if he had had his choice, he would have done that all the time.
Crawling King Snake is a wonderful costume for Jim to wear. He's playing a part, he thinks, but he is also the part.
Invariably, Robby Krieger would have something. A genius, the Doors' secret weapon. The man would always have something. And he'd say, yeah, I got one, it's called Love Her Madly. Love her madly, like Duke Ellington. Duke Ellington would always say at the end of a concert, we love you madly. Robby picks that up and twists a little bit, make Love Her Madly. Plays it on the guitar.
Don't you love her madly? Don't you need her badly? Don't you love her way? Tell me what you say. Don't you love her madly? Wanna be her daddy? Don't you love her as she's walking out the door? I knew that Love Her Madly, when it happened, was a hit. I just knew it. And we all knew it. I was fooling around on a 12-string guitar, and the melody just kind of came to me. At the time, my girlfriend, who later became my wife, Lynn, every time we had an argument, she used to get pissed off and go out the door, and she'd slam the door so loud and the whole house would shake, you know? So that's where I got the line as she's walking out the door.
A minor. Tempos like this. And I've got it. And then Jim starts to sing.
Don't you love her madly? Don't you need her badly?
Robby, again, underestimated. You know, not only as a guitar player, but as a songwriter. Look at all the hits he wrote, Light My Fire, Love Her Madly, Love Me Two Times, Tell All the People.
Don't you love her face? Don't you love her as she's walking out the door? Like she did 1,000 times before. Don't you love her ways? Tell me what you say. Don't you love her as she's walking out the door?
Don't you love her madly as she's walking out the door? What a great line. Of course you do. You know, I don't ever want to see you again. We're done. Oh, wait a minute.
And I hear, oh God, I can put a Vox, I'll put the Vox Continental right in here. 7 horses seem to be on the mark.
Doors' greatest strength as songwriters is that they didn't think of themselves as individual writers coming in with their bit. They thought of themselves as a songwriting band.
I thought it was a little too commercial, you know, for the first single.
There was a very special advantage to my not being at the sessions. I got my own first blush reactions to things. And when the hair stands up at the back of my neck on a song, that's one I pay attention to, and it happened for Love Her Madly.
That was the first time we tried playing with another guitar player, with a rhythm guitar player. We wanted to feel live, you know. So we figured, okay, we'll get this guy Mark Benno, and he just kind of played the perfect, you know, rhythm stuff, which allowed me to go ahead and play my leads at the same time.
And Bruce Botnick brings in Jerry Sheff, Elvis Presley's bass player.
Jim just lit up like he was happy as a camper. He says, Elvis Presley's bass player? Me? You play with us? I said, yeah. So I called Jerry and he said, absolutely, I'd love to do it.
And just did some brilliant stuff, man. That bass line on L.A. Woman, holy cow.
L.A. Woman, in some respects, is film noir, rock and roll film noir. I remember going downtown L.A. when you just drove down there and walked the streets, and it smelled like one of those old black and white film noir movies.
For me, a Los Angeles native, it's our anthem. You know, what describes L.A. better than L.A. Woman? Answer, nothing.
It was the quintessential expression of what living in California was like.
You know, women took him in and fed him. But women fed him in many different ways, not only with food, but with support, with sex, with emotion, with booze. And he was thanking them in this song, but he was leaving them, all of them. And he was leaving the city that he loved.
Down about an hour ago, I took a look around, they went with a wind blow. With a little girl in a Hollywood bungalow. Are you a lucky little lady in the city of light? Or did you know the lost angel? City of night, city of night.
City of Night is a reference to John Ritchie's great Los Angeles homosexual novel, great novel called City of Night. So he's got his literary reference in there, another lost angel in the City of Night. Wow, you know, just lyrics were so good. They were so Raymond Chandler, so Nathaniel West, so 1930s, 40s, dark, seamy side of Los Angeles. A place where Jim would easily go.
L.A. woman, L.A. woman, L.A. woman, Sunday afternoon. L.A. woman, Sunday afternoon. L.A. woman, Sunday afternoon. Drive through your suburbs into your blues.
I think here we go with Ray's piano solo. Yes. And this was an overdub. But how it works perfectly with his Wurlitzer piano.
Al Cooper's band, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, they play a song called Day in the Country. This is I played Day in the Country.
I think he liked that part of L.A., that you could be a stranger in L.A. You could hide behind a beard and get away with it, even though you were a rock star.
I see your hair is burning. Hills are filled with fire.
I see your hair is burning. hills are filled with fire. That's what poetry is. In a very few words, you create this entire world.
This guy who had words, they were so percussive. I immediately heard rhythms.
And here's John drums. You hear what he's doing? This is all on one track. I mean, we had to make decisions on those days. It was all recorded on 8-track. So we locked it in. This is how they're locked together, John and Jerry Sheff.
Great player, great feel. Drummers and bass players are brothers in the basement, cooking up the groove. They're bonded.
Motel money, better madness. But ain't a mood too glad to sadness.
And then Morrison says a classic line, an anagram of his name. Jim Morrison, play with the letters, turn them around and move them around, and you come up with Mr. Mojo Risin.
Mr. Mojo Risin.
It was that quality of being stronger than everything around you and of climbing up out of that. You know, Mr. Mojo Risin, it's a brilliant image. And it comes from blues. I got my mojo working. Muddy Waters, Willie Dixon.
Mojo was a blues term for sexuality. And so I thought, well, what if I slowly increase the tempo like an orgasm?
And listen to this scream from Jim. He was obviously having fun, enjoying himself.
Yeah, it was like the energy level in the room just went from here to, whoa, overhead. We're operating up here. Energy is up here. Doris operated up there between the four of us quite a lot.
The song L.A. Woman, that was totally put together in the studio just from sitting around jamming and, you know. So I always say that's the quintessential Doors song because of the way we wrote it.
Here comes Robby solo.
You need to be in a car with that on 10 and screaming down the freeway in Los Angeles listening to L.A. Woman, you'll get that song.
L.A. Woman, you know, the metaphor of the city as a woman is brilliant. Cops in cars, never saw a woman so alone. I mean, this is just great stuff. It's metaphoric. He's looking at the physicality of the town and thinking of her, and we need to take care of her. It's my hometown, so let's nurture the LA woman.
I want to tell you about Texas radio and a big beat. It comes out of the Virginia swamps, cool and slow, with a backbeat narrow and hard to master. Some call it heavenly in its brilliance, others mean and rueful of the Western dream. I love the friends I have gathered together on this thin raft. We've constructed pyramids in honor of our escaping. For this is the land where the Pharaoh died.
Texas Radio, the big beat. Jim used to recite that as poetry
Children,
in concert, but he didn't have
the
the little bridges that he sang. And I remember Ray saying, hey, what about Texas Radio? You know, we've never really done
They
it.
are saying, forget the night. Live with us in forests of azure. Meager food for souls forgot.
You know, that was that thing about Morrison all the time. It wasn't so much about the music, but about what this guy represented. What was he talking about? What was he trying to say? What was he trying to tell us?
I want to tell you about Texas Radio and the big beat.
With Jim eating his microphone.
Comes out of the Virginia swamps, cool and slow with plenty of precision, and a backbeat narrow and hard to master.
I'm going to solo John and Jim so you can hear how they're working together.
Some call it heavenly in its brilliance, others mean and rueful of the Western dream. I love the friends I have gathered together in this thin raft. We have constructed pyramids in honor of our escaping. This is the land where the Pharaoh died.
This is a great example of a song starting as a seed and flowering and becoming a complete song and not doing it over a period of days.
It was a poem, and this lick, da da da, boom, 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 da da da, da 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 da. I don't know why. I kept the beat, but then I decided to follow the melody with my snare drum.
Loss of God, I'll tell you about the hopeless night. Meager food for souls forgot. I'll tell you about the maiden with wrought iron soul.
You know, those stations in Mexico, they used to broadcast across the border. Wolfman Jack was broadcasting from south of the border across the South and playing wild R&B and Howlin' at the Moon. And these would have been things that a lot of kids Jim's age would have heard.
Let me tell you about Texas Radio on the big beat, the Negroes of the forest. That scene that he paints is so primal.
The Negroes in the forest, brightly feathered, and they are saying, forget the night, live with us in forests of azure. Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Man, that is one of the greatest lines ever written. Because when you are stoned and you are out there on the perimeter, you are immaculate. This is psychedelics we're talking about. This is expanding one's consciousness. This was a journey to become immaculate.
Jim's life was poetry, with all of the tumult, the lack of rhyme, the freestyle that life has.
I don't think there was a better poet of Jim's age, of Jim's time.
Now listen to this, I'll tell you about Texas. I'll tell you about Texas Radio. I'll tell you about the hopeless night. Wander in the Western dream. Tell you about the maiden with wrought iron soul.
Near the end of the mixing, Jim said that he wanted to go to Paris.
In one of my photos of the recording studio, there's a chalkboard. And written on that chalkboard are the words, a clean slate. Jim needed a clean slate.
I think that was his gift to the band. He could go do what he wanted to do if he worked with them on this next album, which I think he thought would be his last.
He said, I'm going to Paris. And we said, what? You're not finished yet, man. We're not finished with the record. We haven't mixed all the songs. He said, everything is fine, man. I've done all my vocals. You guys are doing fine. It's sounding great. I'm going to go to Paris with Pam.
I did not really think, especially after I said goodbye to Jim, that he would ever come back as a member of any band.
There's no question Jim announced he was resigning. He was going to be a writer. And it wasn't, I'll never talk to you again. It wasn't hostile. It was, this is what I'm going to go do with my life. And we'll see what happens.
You know, obviously, he was kind of messed up, and we said, hey, man, great, you know, do what you have to do, and, you know, when you come back, we'll worry about this, you know. So, I mean, it sounded like a good idea to us. Fortunately, it didn't turn out that way.
And off he went to Paris. And I never saw him again. That was it. I never saw him again. I never even talked to him again. He was only over there like 3-4 months.
We're all riders on the storm. I think that's everybody who has had vicissitudes in life, love in life, disappointments, never knowing exactly what's going to happen next, facing everything, a kind of bravery that we all have just to be alive. It's not easy out there.
Riders on the Storm, a little more jazzy, darker, has that melancholy, but it has that rolling feel of a band playing together.
Riders on the storm, riders on the storm, into this house we're born. Into this world we're thrown, like a dog without a bone, and packed we're out on loan. Riders on the storm, there's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday, let your children play. If you give this man a ride, sweet family will die. Killer on the road.
Riders has this mood. It originally came from us jamming on this Ghost Riders in the Sky. Do dum da dum da dum da da dum da 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 da.
An old cowpoke went riding out one dark and windy day. Upon a ridge he rested as he went along his way. When all at once a mighty herd of red-eyed cows he saw, plowing through the ragged skies and up a cloudy draw.
And we're jamming, and it's got this sort of Western Clint Eastwood mood, you know.
And from there, it kind of morphed into more of like a... And it kind of turned into Riders on the Storm. And Jim changed the words from Ghost Riders in the Sky to Riders on the Storm.
I said, wait, okay, that's great, man. Riders on the Storm. We can't do Vaughn Monroe, the old cowpoke run riding out one dark and windy day. So I said, let me see what I can do with this. And here's what I came up with. We got to put some jazz to it, make it dark. And sure enough, this is what happened.
There's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad.
Jerry Scheff says, "What's the bass line?" I said, "Like simple. E minor, A major." He said, "Oh man, that's impossible." I said, "What, for you?"
And here's Jerry Scheff by himself. And he's basically playing what Ray would have played on his left hand if he was playing a piano bass, but with some latitude, because what Ray could play with his left hand couldn't always translate into a bass. So like those little slides.
At this point, singing this vocal, he knew that he was going to Paris. And he was singing his love to Pam.
Girl, you gotta love your man. Girl, you gotta love your man. Take him by the hand. Make him understand. The world on you depends. Our life will never end. Gotta love your man. Yeah.
And here's Ray's solo. You can hear it. He was taken direct, which means he wasn't playing through an amplifier, and it was just direct injection into the console.
More thunder, bring in the thunder.
The loneliness that that song conjures up about how we are here in this torment that we call the world, trying to keep our heads above the fray, above the surf, above the storm.
That whisper voice that's just singing, "Riders on the Storm." You can hear that in the last two Riders on the Storm. That's Jim's spirit whispering to us from the ether, whispering to us from the beyond.
The cars hiss by my window like the waves down on the beach.
My last message to Jim after he'd gone to Paris, I told him I had just quit drinking and it was time for him to quit too.
But he sounded lonely and distant, as if it wasn't panning out for him. And maybe it was the cycle of alcoholism again had re-entered his life there.
But she's out of reach. Headlight to my window, shining on the wall.
Jim went in to take a hot bath, and she describes finding him the next morning. She'd gone to sleep, and he had died in the bathtub on his back. She said he was smiling. I'm glad to hear that.
When I heard, I didn't believe it, because he just seemed like this Irish drunk who was going to party till 80.
Jim was so larger than life, you know, the way he was, I couldn't imagine him dead.
We knew from the gravity of the reports from Paris and hearing from Bill Siddons, the manager who had gone there to help to arrange the burial, that this is all too real.
Phone rang Monday morning at 4:30, and my wife Sherry sat bolt upright when the phone started ringing and said, "Jim's dead." And I looked at her and went, "What?" And I answered the phone, and it was Clive Selwood, our label manager in the UK, telling me that 3 different journalists had called him and told him that Jim had died. And I got a 3:30 plane and was in Paris at 6:30 the next morning. I just held her for a minute, and the coffin was in the living room. I literally spent hours with Pamela just talking. And she said he told me when he was there, when he died, he wanted to be buried in Père Lachaise. I just thought it was beautiful that he even knew enough that that's where he might want to be buried, and I thought it was, there was something completely right about doing this. And I was absolutely clear, having been through a number of press debacles in my life, that the best thing we could do is not tell anybody. We're going to do it our way. We're going to bury a poet.
Well, I lost the best writing partner anybody's ever had. I mean, it was our whole life that was gone,
I loved playing music to his words, and that's what I miss terribly. I don't miss the self-destruction. In his case, they went hand in hand.
Whenever we lose a creative person, we lose something that could be added to the culture to make the culture richer and brighter. And I think with Jim's death, one of the lights of the 60s went out.
Hyacinth House was the loneliest song Jim ever wrote. What are they doing in the Hyacinth House to feed the lions these days? I need a brand new friend who doesn't bother me, who doesn't need me.
What are they doing in the Hyacinth House? What are they doing in the Hyacinth House to please the lions? Yeah, this day. I need a brand new friend who doesn't trouble me. I need someone, yeah, who doesn't need me.
I don't want to have friends that need me. I don't want to have people around me who are leaning on me. It's too heavy. I'm only 27 years old. Let me go. I need a new friend who doesn't need me. Is he referring to his main squeeze? Or is he referring to his friends like me? Is he referring to the band? I think he's referring to everybody. I think he's saying, let me go. Let me be somebody else.
To be frank, the last few years of his life, there were several friends he was hanging with that were kind of, idolizing him and didn't discourage his substance abuse. So, were those friends?
Losing, some of the people, the hangers-on who were dragging him down. If you hang out with drinkers and drug takers, it's not necessarily, you're not necessarily getting French symbolist poets. You get kind of like creeps and weirdos.
Here's a chance for me to quote one of my fellow people from a man from Poland, Mr. Chopin. So I'm doing a little Chopin Polonaise, my solo. And Jim sings.
And I'll say it again. I need a brand new friend.
I spent a fair amount of time hanging out in the studio with them, and they were having a good time.
There were wonderful songs. The Changeling was kind of a tribute to James Brown. Lover Madly was clearly the single. So I knew I had a single for AM radio, and then I knew I had LA Woman and Riders on the Storm for FM radio. Those were guaranteed. It was a terrific record.
If you're going to have an epitaph, if you're going to have one last record, then that was the record to make.
The Doors are a living entity. When I play them tonight, they will mean something to my audience. That music speaks to you and me, and it speaks to kids, and it speaks to people older than us.
It was an incredible statement of how strong they were as a band and what a unique and extraordinary partnership they were.
You can feel the warmth and the liveness of it, you know. It was really our most spontaneous album.
Jim got empowered by us producing LA Woman ourselves, you know, and we all did, because we made all the decisions, and it was inspiring.
I don't think that imagination, inspiration, beauty, at a high spiritual level ever go out of style. Whether it's Bach, or Scriabin, or the Doors. And people are still listening to all of them.
His world on you depends. Our life will never end. The ultimate statement, our life will never end. And the ancient Egyptians used to say that if you say a man's name, he is alive. So I take this opportunity to say Jim Morrison.
Paris, we interrupt this broadcast to bring you a special bulletin. Rock music fans all over the world are in mourning today. Jim Morrison, lead singer of The Doors, was found dead in his Paris apartment this morning. French authorities attribute the cause of death to a heart attack. Morrison was 27 years old. Goodbye, Jim. We'll miss you. Jim Morrison was buried today in Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. The coffin was sealed and only his girlfriend, Pamela Corson, and The Doors manager were in attendance. With his passing, the future of The Doors remains uncertain. I'm Jim Ladd on 95.5 KLOS, and I'll be here all night as we pay tribute to one of America's most original and influential bands.
The 60s begin with a shot. The civil rights movement intensifies. The war in Vietnam gets bigger and bloodier.
President Johnson, meanwhile, let it be known that the FBI is closely watching all anti-war activity.
The youth movement catches fire, making everyone over 30 a cultural enemy. The days of Ricky Nelson and Leave It to Beaver are over.
I have nothing against kissing, but these friends of yours, Penny, they want to kiss you all night.
The establishment resists, but a genuine counterculture is growing. For some, psychedelics like LSD open the doors of perception. A massive cultural earthquake is splitting the country wide open. And out of the crowd steps a band called The Doors.
Name? Robby Krieger. Age? 22 years old.
Occupation?
Guitar.
Name?
John Densmore.
Age?
23.
Occupation?
Percussionist.
Name?
Raymond Daniel Manzarek.
Age?
Born 2/12/39.
Occupation?
Musician. Organist.
Name?
Jim.
Occupation?
Jim Morrison is the oldest son of a decorated Navy officer. At 16, he's already reading Nietzsche, Rimbaud, and William Blake. He's also obsessed with Elvis Presley. One teacher sends home a note scolding him as self-centered. He goes to 3 colleges before attending the film school at UCLA. One of his friends there is Ray Manzarek, who's also playing keyboards in his brother's surf band, Rick and the Ravens. Ray started with classical piano, but quickly turned on to jazz and Chicago blues. Jim, too, had an affinity for the blues. They shared a common interest in cinema. They were also dropping acid several times a month. Jim makes one film at UCLA. It earns him a D. He skips his graduation and tells Ray he's moving to New York City. But a few months later, Ray runs into Jim at the beach in Venice. He's been living on someone's roof and writing songs for a rock concert he hears in his head. Ray asks him to sing one. Jim hesitates. Then he sings Moonlight Drive.
Let's swim to the moon. Let's climb through the
Ray is impressed by the poetry of his lyrics. They decide to start a band. Jim's already chosen a name from a poem by William Blake. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is. Infinite. Jim moves in with Ray and his girlfriend, Dorothy Fujikawa. Ray invites someone from his meditation class to come jam with them. John Densmore brings his friend, Robby Krieger. Jim loves his bottleneck slide so much, he wants to use it on every song. Robby and John like his lyrics more than his voice, but something about their lead singer pulls them in. In the summer of 1965, the Doors are born. Jim had never sung before. Robby had only been playing electric guitar for 6 months. His original training was on acoustic, Spanish flamenco. He played in one rock band with Densmore when they were both in high school. John had morphed from a high school marching band to a certified jazz freak into Coltrane and Mingus. Ray rents a house, and the band rehearses there all summer. Jim says they need more songs and tells everyone to write one over the weekend. Only Robby does his homework. The first song he writes is called Light My Fire.
That I would be a liar if I what to say to you. Girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. Time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire.
The Doors get their first gig at a dive in L.A. called the London Fog. Still unsure of himself, Jim turns his back to the audience, facing the band like he does in rehearsal. The talent booker for the Whiskey A Go-Go comes in one night. She falls for Morrison and convinces her boss to hire the Doors as the Whiskey's house band. In late 1966, they're opening for the Turtles, Buffalo Springfield, and Van Morrison. Word spreads, especially about the lead singer. Jack Holzman, founder of Elektra Records, is so impressed, he offers them a 3-album deal. The next night, Jim doesn't show up at the Whiskey. John and Ray head over to the motel he's crashing at and find him out of his mind on acid. When they get him back to the Whiskey, Jim wants to play The End, a song he wrote about breaking up with his high school girlfriend.
The killer awoke before dawn. He put his boots on. He took a face from the ancient gallery and he
You walked on down the hallway, baby.
Came to a door, and he looked inside.
No one in the band knows where he's going.
Father? Yes, son. I want to kill you. Mother, I want to. Fuck you all night, baby. Fuck you, mama, all night long. You wait, mama, gonna love you, baby, all night, yeah.
The whiskey's owner calls Jim a sick bastard and fires them. A few weeks later, the Doors record their first album in 5 days. Holzman brings in veteran producer Paul Rothchild. The equipment he uses is state-of-the-art, a 4-track recorder. He lays down John's drums on one track. Ray's organ and Robby's guitar take up the second. The third goes to Jim's vocal, leaving the fourth for all overdubs. Light My Fire and The End are over 7 minutes long. Both are recorded in 2 takes. At Jim's insistence, all songs are credited simply to the Doors. To promote the album, Holzman buys a billboard on the Sunset Strip. No one has done this before. Break On Through is their first single. It stalls at number 106. Holzman shifts quickly to Light My Fire. Rothchild cuts the instrumentals, and the song hits the AM airwaves. In July of 1967, the first song Robby Krieger ever wrote climbs to number 1 in the country. Ray and Dorothy hear it on their car radio and start screaming. The first royalty checks give the Doors $50,000 apiece. Morrison's family is oblivious until a friend of his younger brother comes over with the album. He thought the guy on the cover looked a little like Jim. The family is further surprised when they see how Jim has described them in his bio. Holzman sends the Doors to New York City. They're an immediate hit. Andy Warhol becomes infatuated, particularly with Morrison. Then, like the Beatles and Rolling Stones before them, they perform live on The Ed Sullivan Show. Now the Doors, here they are with their newest hit record, Light My Fire.
Time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. China we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire.
Sullivan asks the Doors to take out the word higher because of its drug implications. They agree. During the performance, Jim sings the song exactly as written.
Yeah, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on 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 fire.
It's been barely a year since their shy young singer couldn't even face his audience. Now, the metamorphosis is complete.
French officials deny any evidence of drug overdose, but a cloud of mystery hangs over Morrison's death. Some claim he's still alive and that his death was just a hoax, perhaps planned by Morrison himself. Numerous sightings of the singer have already been reported.
No, I think the mood I get from most of it is kind of a heavy, kind of sort of gloomy feeling, you know? Like of someone not quite at home, or you know, or not quite relaxed and, you know, aware of a lot of things, but not quite sure about anything, you know?
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down. When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, no one remembers your name. When you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange. People are strange when you're a stranger.
The fact is, the music is strange. It is music for the different, the uninvited. It carries the listener into the shadowy realm of dreams. Part of the strangeness comes from their lack of a bass player. This leaves Densmore to hold the beat. But his jazz sensibility keeps it both tight and unpredictable.
Faces come out of the rain when you're strange.
Krieger's flamenco influences bring another layer of mystery. He never uses a pick, playing rhythm and lead with his fingernails. But the sound needs a bottom. Manzarek discovers an electric piano bass and plays the bass line with his left hand. He uses his right for chords and his Bach-tinged blues runs.
When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, no one.
The organ carries a hint of the carnival, both childlike and darkly disturbing. It's no accident their second album, Strange Days, features circus performers on its cover.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down.
But if the band has a surreal fairground air, it is Morrison who is the frenzied trapeze artist.
Love me two-time, baby. Love me twice today. Love me two-time, girl. I'm gone away. Love me two-time, girl. One for tomorrow, one just for today. Love me two-time, I'm gone away.
To Ray, he's like an ancient shaman, leading his followers into worlds they'd never dare enter alone.
Could not speak. Love me one time. Yeah, my knees got weak. Love me two-time, girl. Loves me all through the week. Love me two-time, I've gone away. Love me two-time, I've gone away. Oh, yeah!
Morrison is both innocent and profane. He's a rock and roll poet. Dangerous and highly intelligent. No one has had this exact combination before.
Love me one time, could not speak. Love me one time, baby. Yeah, my knees got weak. Love me 2 times, girl. Last week, all through the week. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away.
No matter how high he flies, his bandmates are always there to catch him and guide him back to earth.
Love me 2 times, babe, 'cause I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, girl. 1 for tomorrow, 1 kiss for today. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away. Love me 2 times, I'm gone away.
Their first hit of fame is sudden and intense.
I even like them more than the Beatles. The Doors, they are so much better.
You think you're a political group? Foremost, we're musicians and writers.
No, you can't take a lit cigarette. Sorry.
I'll see how I feel after a beer.
You want people to like you? Well, I'd like them to listen. I'd like them to give the music a chance. And just to listen.
The music can't help but reflecting things that are happening around it.
I think for your own sake, while all the police are out there containing the kids, you ought to get in the car and split. I really do. For your, well, unless he wants to get, yeah, I mean, it's up to him. It's up to him, unless he wants to have them grab at his body.
If he doesn't want it, I'll take it.
And Bill and Todd will take the leftovers.
Yeah, really should split. I've noticed that when people are joking, they're usually dead serious. And when they're dead serious, it's usually pretty funny.
You should say that at a concert.
Is your band like the Monkees?
The monkeys?
I said like the Monkees.
Well,
All of our music is really so symbolic rather than direct to the point, you know. Like.
Everybody's always talking about rock and roll and jazz finally blending, you know. And I don't think that can really happen, but if it's supposed to, I think we're it.
Okay, this time, can you look to me, please?
I'm gonna touch the Doors.
Hey, quit knocking on the door. Hey!
All right, please, give it to him now. Come on, just take one picture. Okay, is everyone?
Most of the attention goes to Jim. If it bothers Robby, Ray, or John, they don't outwardly show it. But Jim relishes the attention. He seems to have been born instantly ready for fame. Everything he does seems either brilliant or brilliantly calculated for effect.
I think these days, especially in the States, you have to be a politician or an assassin or something to really be a superstar.
Without a personal manager or publicist, Jim takes control of his own image. He picks out all his clothes, from the conch belts to the leather pants, seemingly designed to accentuate his crotch.
We gotta go to the dressing room, right? Okay, we're gonna go to the dressing room. Wait a while, don't get out yet.
He understood exactly how to make it all work for him. And perhaps to protect himself, he made it seem like he couldn't care less. In 1968, The Who opened for the Doors at the Singer Bowl on Long Island.
Don't go in. We need you. TV camera. Oh, yes. Will you come on out?
You know, Jagger.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How much are these? $1. Can I look at it first to see the one? I got one. I don't know about those. You know, Nick, when Jagger and the Who fought, how much are those?
It's hard to tell if he's simply mingling with his fans or if he's drawing something crucial from them, as if he needs their attention to survive. The Singer Bowl crowd is already worked up. Morrison stokes them further. Someone throws a chair.
Everybody feel all right?
The show is over, gentlemen.
Give him a hand in helping us. He's too heavy. Stay where you are.
No, she was just an innocent bystander. And
That became a victim.
Someone whacked her with a chair.
Oh, whacked her with a chair? I don't know.
Are you sure it was a chair?
I don't know what it was. Someone hit me, I fell, and I wound up
Well, where did
here.
they get a chair? There weren't any chairs.
I don't know.
Well, just tell me.
Earlier in the concert, Jeff Silverman is taking pictures in the front row. He sees Jim look directly at a young girl and grab his crotch. Her boyfriend picks up the chair. According to Silverman, it was the first chair to be thrown.
It's already coagulating. I think you're going to be okay.
Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Come here.
I'm the Lizard King. I can do anything.
Morrison's poem, The Celebration of the Lizard, was to take up one whole side of the Doors' next album. But Paul Rothchild chooses not to include it. Jim's behavior is becoming unpredictable, and Rothchild is under pressure to get another record out while the band is hot. He fills out the side with unused songs from their first album. Despite the raw intensity of new songs like 5 to 1 and Unknown Soldier, critics dismissed the record. But fans judge it differently. Both the album and Morrison's Hello, I Love You hit #1.
Something like that.
Don't overblow, Jim. You got a long way to go.
Why not?
Ray, look, we gotta look at
With a what?
In 1968, the Doors begin recording the Soft Parade. Paul Rothchild produces, with Bruce Botnick as his engineer. Jim has begun coming into the studio, drunk or high. Robby writes half the songs on Soft Parade. And for the first time, he and Jim separate their writing credits.
We're in Africa.
Well, you know what Robby's trying to do, that sound.
Yeah, I know that.
Stupidest ending I've ever heard on any song.
What's stupid? The ending? How's that again?
Robby does 2, John 1, I do 2, and then you
That sounds good, Robby. Here we go. One time, everybody, please.
Wild child, full of grace, savior of the human race, your cool face. Natural child, terrible child, not your mother's, oh, yo, father's child, yo, our child, screaming wild.
Do you know the war in progress under the stars? Do you know we exist? Have you forgotten the keys to the kingdom? Have you been born yet, and are you alive?
Successful heroes are here to stay. Everything must be this way.
The youth movement keeps growing.
Where people pay.
So like I was telling you, honey, before these cameramen came along, death in our time... Oh, man, I don't know.
And by 1968, the country is radically changed.
And I pledge, if you give me your help, if you give me your hand, that I will work with you and we will have a new America. Thank you very much.
Ray originally thought LSD was the key to enlightenment. But a series of bad trips sends him in a different direction. He turned to meditation, along with Robby and John, attempting to find his bliss elsewhere. Morrison keeps tripping for a while.
When the music's over, when the music's over, when the music's over, turn out the light, turn out the light, turn out
the light. What the music is your special friend. Day and sound fire is it intense. Music is your only friend. Until the end, until the end, until the end.
Still has doubts about his voice. He's had no musical training, and he can't read a note. Sinatra has replaced Elvis as his favorite singer. He describes his own voice as a scream or a sick croon.
Cancel my subscription to the resurrection. Send my credentials to the house of detention. I got some friends.
Morrison takes a hard turn from psychedelics to booze. Soft Parade takes 11 months to record. This is partly due to Rothschild's insistence on perfection. He makes the band do hundreds of takes. But no one talks about the elephant in the room. Densmore develops headaches and breaks out in rashes from the tension. One day, John walks out of the studio saying he can't take it anymore. The next morning, he shows up, and the band continues recording without a word.
Gonna win, yeah, we're taking over. Come on!
Sometimes the drinking helps Morrison. Sometimes it doesn't. The band becomes adept at keeping him alive on stage. His first onstage arrest had come early in New Haven, Connecticut. Before the concert, Jim is making out with a girl in a shower stall backstage. A cop walks in on them. Not recognizing Jim, he orders them out. Jim tells him to go fuck himself. The cop maces him. Minutes before the show, Jim is in agony. His eyes are still bloodshot and streaming with tears. In the middle of the first song, he stops and tells the audience what's just happened to him. Jim keeps calling the cop a little blue man in a little blue suit with a little blue cap. When the police move in, Jim offers them a chance to say their thing. They choose not to. Jim is arrested for breach of peace and immoral exhibition. 2 cops punch him in the face and kick him when he falls. This starts the reputation of the Doors as a dirty and dangerous band. It It also marks a change between the Doors and their audience. They're coming now to watch Morrison go crazy. There is a growing sense that the fans are not there to hear the music, but to witness a spectacle. It is becoming harder and harder to distinguish between himself and the person who appears on stage. But the train keeps picking up speed. No one wants off. In April 1968, the Village Voice chooses Morrison as Vocalist of the Year. The Doors win Best Band, and Ray Manzarek is Best Musician after Eric Clapton and Ravi Shankar. The Soft Parade goes gold, making 4 gold albums in a row. Touch Me, written by Krieger, gives the band their 3rd top 10 single.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, now touch me, babe. Can't you see that I am not afraid? What was that promise that you made? Why won't you tell me what she said? What was that promise that you made? I'm gonna love you till the heavens stop the rain. I'm gonna love you till the stars fall from the sky.
By late December 1968, the Doors are being hailed as America's Rolling Stones. And just at that moment, Jim announces he's quitting. The band is stunned. Without Jim, there is no Doors.
We need you to stay in the game. Well, the thing is, I don't think I like the game.
His girlfriend, Pam Corson, encourages him to forget music and concentrate on his poetry. Jim's already self-published 2 notebooks of his poems, both dedicated to her. His poetry is symbolic and pure. It frees him from the requirements of rock stardom.
Yeah, posing for a picture, can you imagine? You know, and really looking in the camera and really posing? That's insane. I must have been out of my mind.
But getting out is not as easy as it seems. Ray convinces him to give it 6 more months. But as his drinking increases, Ray sees it give birth to Morrison's alter ego, whom he names Jimbo. Everyone dreads his appearance. Out of concern for his health and the future of the band, they finally confront him directly. Jim listens politely. He stays sober for about a week. Then Jimbo returns. The band hires a series of professional drinkers to keep tabs on Morrison. They can't keep up with him.
Got any groovy pussy in this joint? Any LSD? Any LSD?
At a party in L.A., he ends up with his face in Janis Joplin's lap. She breaks down in tears and then cracks a whiskey bottle over his head. Pam gets tired of Jim's drunken infidelities. She convinces him to see a psychiatrist. Jim goes to one session. He's moving further away from his family. When his mother comes to watch the Doors in Washington, D.C., Jim does not see her. He hasn't spoken to his father since 1966, when he got a letter from him with the advice to give up any idea of singing or any connection with a musical group because of what I consider a complete lack of talent in this direction. At the height of his son's fame, Admiral Morrison is commanding a division of aircraft carriers off the coast of Vietnam. In his world, survival depends on obedience. To Jim, obedience is suicide.
Would anybody like to see my genitals? I don't think there should be a president, man. I think it should be a total democracy, man. But I'll tell you this, man. I'll tell you this. I don't know what's gonna happen, man. But I want to have my kicks before the whole shithouse goes up in flames. All right. All right.
In September 1968, the Doors tour Europe. They're a big hit, even after Jim swallows a chunk of hash in Amsterdam and collapses unconscious on stage. The band plays the gig without him, with Ray doing all the singing. Afterwards, Jim stays in London with Pam, hanging out with poet Michael McClure. The three of them go off on a drinking binge. When Jim resurfaces, he discovers the Doors have licensed Light My Fire for use in a car commercial. Robby, Ray, and John explain they'd tried to find him for days. They thought the commercial was unique and felt Jim would agree. But Jim does not agree. The car commercial and $75,000 evaporate. The alcohol takes a personal toll. In the beginning, as Ray pulls the band together, he and Jim are very close. Jim had always welcomed Robby, offering advice, like giving each lyric a double meaning. His drinking drives a wedge between them. John and Jim used to drive around fantasizing about being in a famous rock and roll band. The alcohol pushes them apart as well. They all see Jim's struggle, but have no idea how to help him. Now, the Doors start playing larger arenas. The first is the Hollywood Bowl in 1968. But Jim seems a little off. John thinks he's dropped acid right before the show. Robby feels Jim was distracted by Mick Jagger sitting in the front row with Pam on his lap. They sell out Madison Square Garden and the L.A. Forum. And in early 1969, their manager, Bill Siddons, books their first extensive U.S. tour. They'll hit 19 cities. Their first gig is in Miami. The band arrives early, minus Morrison. He's had a fight with Pam and missed his plane. He misses another flight, hanging out in the airport bar, and shows up 20 minutes late.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Doors.
The mood inside the converted airplane hangar is already tense. The promoter has pulled out all the seats so he could sell another 2,000 tickets. As the band takes the stage, Jim seems preoccupied. The week before, the Living Theater had performed in Los Angeles. Their manifesto is radically political. Change can only come from a rejection of all rules. Jim goes to every performance. He once called the Doors erotic politicians, but he confesses to the group's director that though he has the ear of a generation, he feels he's never had anything to say. He chooses this moment to change that.
Are you talking about no revolution? And I'm not talking about no demonstration. I'm talking about having a good time. I'm talking about love, 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 love. Grab your fucking friend and love him. Come on. Hey, listen, I am lonely. I need some love, you all. Come on. I need some good time loving, sweetheart. Love me. Come on.
Someone throws a gallon of orange paint at the band.
You're all a bunch of slaves. Let people tell you what you're gonna do. How long are you gonna let them push you around? Maybe you love it. Maybe you love getting your face stuck in the shit. Come on. What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it?
There's a rush at the stage.
Listen, anybody that wants to come up here and join us, do some dancing, have some fun, just get on up here.
A friend of Jim's walks out and hands him a lamp.
Fuck her, but she's too young.
A woman pours a bottle of champagne over Morrison. He takes off his wet shirt, urging everyone to join him. Shirts, pants, bras, and underwear sail through the air. But there's only one song they want to hear. Morrison gets angry. You came to see something else, didn't you? All right, here's my cock.
Now we're not gonna leave until we all get our rocks off.
Ray yells out for someone to stop him.
Oh, someone's gonna get hurt.
The stage starts to collapse. Robby and John jump off. And Zarek keeps playing. Jim is thrown into the audience by a security guard. Less than an hour after it started, the concert is over. The Doors play fragments of only 4 songs. The next day, the entire band flies to Jamaica for a vacation. Unknown to them, something strange is happening back in Miami.
The Doors are out to make their own scene. It was a bad scene, and like I say, it was completely unwarranted, uncalled for in all parts.
It didn't seem like actual entertainment that we expected to see. It seemed like very many people were under the influence of drugs.
We have to do something about this. This is real disgusting. And how my children, when I grow up and have children, do I want them in an environment like this? I mean, is this progress, or are we decaying in a way?
We have taken out 2 warrants for Jim Morrison. One of them is for indecent exposure. The other is for the use of obscene languages during his performance at Dinner Key Saturday night. We have been delayed on issuing these warrants because we were waiting, hoping to get pictures that were taken during the performance.
Jim's hit with 1 felony and 3 misdemeanors, but it's the felony charge that is the most disturbing. It claims that Jim did lewdly and lasciviously expose his penis, place his hands upon his penis, and shake it, and did simulate the acts of masturbation upon himself and oral copulation upon another. Although many pictures were taken during the concert, none show Morrison exposing himself. But for proof of oral copulation, the prosecution offers this photo as evidence. The charges take the Doors by surprise. Over 100 cops had been at the concert. None had attempted to stop Morrison. To John, the only thing they were guilty of was a lousy show.
I especially thank my fellow citizens who joined me in what at first...
But a wave of conservatism is sweeping the country.
For almost 5 months, our community has been subjected...
Decency rallies are held, specifically targeting the Doors.
The people of Dade County have said, enough, enough, enough.
Even the rock and roll press turns against them.
To break its contract and cancel 2 concerts of the Doors.
Radio stations stop playing the Doors' music.
Performances will be obnoxious.
And one by one, every remaining city on the Doors' first major tour gets canceled. Finally, on April 4th, 1969, Jim Morrison surrenders to the FBI. The trial starts in August. Ray, Robby, and John testify in Jim's defense. All of them deny seeing Jim expose himself.
Jim, you're facing 3.5 years in state prison for the Miami incident. The scope of this trial goes way beyond rock and roll. It's really about the First Amendment.
What we're testing down there is the issue of artistic freedom of expression.
But the prosecutor, Terrence McWilliams, seems preoccupied with sex. He keeps returning to the oral copulation charge. Jim explains he was down on his knees simply to admire Robby's intricate fingerwork. McWilliams scoffs, saying Jim must have seen Robby perform this solo hundreds of times. Jim replies, well, Robby gets better and better all the time. Although a comedy of errors, the trial is no joke. On October 30th, 1969, Morrison is found guilty of profanity and indecent exposure.
Jim, you have anything to say?
Judge Murray Goodman sentences Jim to 4 months of hard labor in the Dade County Jail. The Doors' attorney quickly files an appeal, but the uncertainty of its outcome throws the Doors into an uneasy state of limbo. Morrison takes it the hardest. It's more than just fear of spending time in a deep southern jail. It's as if he suddenly realized he's not invincible. Like Morrison, the country's innocence is being tested as well. A spasm of violence ripples throughout the decade, and it continues to be reflected in the Doors' music. Morrison believes violence is an American tradition. Its citizens are addicted to it and enchanted by it. The Doors had passed on Woodstock, so in 1970, while still waiting on their Miami appeal, they fly to a small island off the coast of England. The concert at the Isle of Wight is intended to be a fusion of Spirit and the world's best rock musicians. But fans feel the concert should be free. Police and promoters disagree.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. Of our elaborate of everything that stands. I'll never look into your eyes again. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land? Come ride with me across the sea endlessly. Woke up in morning, got the crossroads on my mind. Well, I woke up in morning, got the crossroads on my mind. Take a walk with me, everything will work out fine. Well, I woke up in morning, got the A-bomb on my mind. Take a walk with me and everything will be alright. Boy, ride that train,
By late 1970, the dream that had stirred an entire generation officially ends. Charles Manson's use of LSD had not led him to enlightenment, but into madness. And a new president removes all hope for change.
In lyrics, what's...
Jim's deeply affected by the deaths of Hendrix and Joplin. He jokes to friends. They're looking at number 3. Michael McClure helps change his mood. With his support, Simon & Schuster publishes the first collection of Jim's poems. The book becomes one of Morrison's proudest accomplishments. Nothing, he says, is as eternal as poetry and song.
Ignition sequence start.
As the country enters the new decade, the doors start over. Morrison Hotel had been another step away from the mainstream. It It took them back to their roots, the blues. It went gold in 2 days. Despite the disaster of Miami, Jack Holzman encourages them to make another album. But some things stay the same. Jim shows up late and drunk, only now he's added cocaine to the mix. The band is alternately bored and furious at Jim. Rothschild falls asleep at the console. He tries to motivate the band by accusing them of playing cocktail music. Rothschild finally realizes it's time for him to leave. His parting words to the Doors: "The only way you'll survive is if you make this record yourselves." Shocked by his departure, the Doors turn to Bruce Botnick. Botnick urges the band to just play. To John, it's like they're back in the garage, back to the four of them, just playing music.
But ain't no mood to glad to sadness.
It's John's idea to slow down the middle of L.A. woman. Jim comes up with a phrase he wants to repeat over and over. After they record it, Jim scribbles something on a piece of paper and shows it to the group.
Mr. Mojo Risin.
Record quickly, doing several songs a day. To help keep Morrison interested, Botnick brings in Jerry Sheff, Elvis's bass player. The band wants Love Her Madly to be the first single, but Robby resists, calling his own song too commercial for the Doors. His choice is Riders on the Storm.
The storm, riders on the storm. Into this house we're born, into this world we're thrown, like a dog without a bone and packed we're out on loan. Riders on the storm, there's a killer on the road. His brain is squirming like a toad. Take a long holiday. Let your children play. If you give this man a ride, sweet family will die. Killer on the road. Yeah.
It takes just over a week to record the entire album. Once again, all songs are credited to the Doors. On December 8th, 1970, Jim Morrison celebrates his birthday by recording his own poetry.
He was no private, for he could not be sold. He was only a man, and his dedication extended to the last degree. Poor pretentious soldier, come home.
He's 27. Friends can't believe the change in only 2 years. The poetry session snaps him out of a depression, and he agrees to perform live with the Doors again. On December 12th, they play New Orleans, introducing the new songs from L.A. Woman. For a moment, the old Morrison appears. Then, he sits down on stage and doesn't get up. It is here Ray says he sees all of Jim's psychic energy leave his body. A few days later, Pam Corson returns to L.A. from a vacation in Paris. She discovers Jim sleeping with a woman who claims they were married in a pagan witch ceremony. But the witch flies back to New York, and Jim goes back to Pam. She still envisions a life for the two of them that starts with Jim leaving the Doors. He'll stay home and write poetry while she runs an exclusive clothing boutique. Just after the band finishes mixing L.A. Woman, Jim announces he and Pam are moving to Paris. He'll relax for a while. He'll quit drinking. He'll concentrate on his poetry. Ray asks when he's coming back. Jim just shrugs. On April 17th, 1971, with the Miami conviction still hanging over him, Jim flies to Paris.
You're lost.
For a while, things go according to plan. Jim does concentrate on his poetry. He shaves his beard. He wanders the streets alone, visiting the cemetery at Père Lachaise, where Chopin, Oscar Wilde, and Edith Piaf are buried. He develops a persistent cough. Back home, Elektra releases L.A. Woman. Critics call it the Doors' comeback album. When his cough worsens, Pam takes him to the doctor, who strongly urges Morrison to quit drinking. As he roams the city, he carries his notebooks in a white plastic shopping bag. They're filled with fragments of song lyrics and poetry. But the solitude of the writing offers little of the kick he knows so well. One day, Jim makes a phone call home. John Densmore is surprised to hear from him. Jim says he's thinking of coming home to make another album with the Doors. But John can tell his voice is slurred. And one night, after hours of heavy drinking, Jim says he doesn't feel well. He takes a bath. After calling out to Pam, "Are you still there?" he dies in the bathtub.
Before you slip into unconsciousness, I'd like to have another kiss, another flashing chance at bliss, another kiss, another kiss. days are bright and filled with pain. Enclose me in your gentle rain. The time you ran was too insane. We'll meet again. We'll meet again.
The Vietnam War finally ends. The youth movement fades away, not to reappear. But that flash of protest, however brief, was real. It forged the consciousness of a whole generation.
Oh, tell me where your freedom lies. The streets are fields that never die. Deliver me from reasons why you'd rather cry. I'd rather fly.
To some, Jim was a poet, his soul trapped between heaven and hell. To others, he was just another rock star who crashed and burned. But this much is true. You can't burn out if you're not on fire.
The crystal ship is being filled. 1,000 girls, 1,000 thrills.
It would take his father another 10 years to say, my son had a unique genius, which he expressed without compromise.
When we get back, I'll drop a line.
The Doors were together for 54 months. They've sold over 80 million albums worldwide. They still sell 1 million albums a year. As of this date, none of their songs has been used in a car commercial.
I want to tell you about Texas radio and the big beat. Comes out of the Virginia swamps, cool and slow with plenty of precision. The backbeat narrow and hard to master. I'll tell you about Texas radio and the big beat. Salt driven, slow and mad like some new language. Indians scattered on dawn's highway bleeding. Ghosts crowd the young child's fragile eggshell mind.
I'll give you out on the road, you hand upon the
All right.